Yeah, I can close it.
Okay.
Morning, everybody. This is like next week for Thanksgiving. Let's get used to it, I guess. Thank you all for taking time to be here and this is one of our busier meetings. Okay, so I'll call the meeting to order. And we will start with the approval of the minutes from our September meeting, which are in your packet and were sent out earlier. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes from September 25th. Thank you, Susan. Second.
Second.
Any additions or corrections? Answer that first. Thank you, Peggy, as always. All in favor? By the saying aye. Opposed, same sign. The minutes from September are approved. Okay. MFCA updates. We'll start with Katie. Sure. Information for us.
Sure, thanks, Gail. I think compared to the last board meeting we had, I've now been here double the time. So I'm excited to be 3 months in. I want to start with a few updates today about our tenant relations. First, starting with our tenant survey results. Every year we do an annual tenant survey. The results of those surveys get submitted to the Department of Budget and Management as part of the Managing for Results process. If you've dealt with KPIs or similar indicators in your own budget processes, this is essentially the state's version of that. The survey was distributed to all tenants at the end of July. It was made available in 6 languages to try to be as accessible as possible for our tenants. They received the survey as well as 2 reminders to complete. Our tenants, they received the survey. nothing like hearing yourself. I got unfortunately, only about a quarter of our tenants did submit their survey. So 10 respondents between the 2 markets out of our 40-ish tenants. It's about 5 less than last year. The questions were the same questions they've seen in the past. Basically, how do they feel about market management overall, about repairs, about communication between management, maintenance, security, and sanitation. We essentially asked them to rate us on a 1 to 5 scale about where 1 is bad and 5 is good. The good news is that all of those metrics were over 4. So the folks that responded generally feel good about how things are going. And I want to especially note that maintenance had both the highest score and the largest improvement last year. So especially like Gary and Martin, the maintenance team on that work. But the bad news is that market management, market repairs, and views on security were all down a little. But overall, with such few respondents, it's really hard to say that this is an accurate view of how tenants feel. And there certainly were some critical comments where folks had concerns about the state of the market, the state of the infrastructure, how communication was flowing. There certainly were some comments that noted those things. So when it comes to the survey, these results will be submitted to DBM, but we'll also think about next year how we can increase participation and think about how what metrics we're reporting and think through that process a little bit more. But obviously this isn't the whole story. So I'm going to talk a little bit more broadly about some of the tenant engagement we've been doing outside of the survey. And part of this too is, I think one of my priorities is trying to make sure that you all have visibility into the concerns and ideas the tenants have at the table, and the tenants have visibility into the board's priorities. And so, as I think I shared at the last meeting, I've been going through and doing one-on-one meetings with each of our tenants, still working through our list as their schedules allow. Gary has joined me for those. They've been really, really helpful conversations because folks have been really specific about the irritants that they are personally facing, and in a lot of cases, the ideas they have to strengthen the market. We also had a very robust produce tenant advisory board meeting in the middle of October. We spent a little over 2 hours going through the first half of questions that tenants submitted to us. We will meet again at the beginning of December to go through the second half. And I think most of you are very aware, but the tenant advisory board is essentially a co-governance sort of committee model that is granted to the produce tenants as a part of their lease terms. They elect members to serve on that board, and then we have a very collaborative relationship in how we work through market operations questions and issues with that group. There isn't anything equivalent for the Maryland Market Center tenants, so that's something we're still thinking about, how we make sure that we're engaging with them in a more formal way, in addition to the one-on-ones that I'm having. And then it's become very, very clear to me through this process that all of the tenants know how to get a hold of Gary when they need him, and how to get a hold of Jennifer and Martin and folks who are gonna solve day-to-day problems. As part of building that visibility, one of the things we're gonna do is we're providing written responses to tenant questions when they ask for follow-up or there are issues, because these are folks that are busy running their own businesses. They don't always have time for a 2-hour tenant meeting. And because, you know, folks just have different priorities, different interests. So we'll be responding in writing across a number of issues that were raised. We're also going to share those questions and answers with the board, so you all kind of know what that tone of conversation is and what's happening. And that's something you'll actually see the first one of those probably early next week. And that's something you should see happening kind of with our cycle around tenant advisory board meetings, which the goal next year will be to get those back up to 4 times a year. So it almost sort of mirrors the board's calendar. And then just in general, I would say across tenants, they want a market that's clean and well run. They want market rules that make sense and are enforced. They want predictability around their expenses to us. And they want transparency and understanding our and your decision making. Not every conversation has been sunshine and roses. We've definitely had some tough conversations already. But in general, there seems to be a pretty strong desire to move forward, be productive, and work together. And so that's not to say we'll never come to you with problems, because I guarantee we will. But we're doing what we can to make sure that folks feel like they have an opportunity to actually share their information with management, and that we are doing our job in making sure you're aware of what's going on in the market as well. So that is what I have on both tenant survey results and tenant engagement. Any questions or comments on either of those items?
I just want to give Katie a little kudo here. I appreciate that there have been routine but not excessive calls when some of these conversations have been happening. So I appreciate, that if there's anything that, do you think the board needs to know about this before the next board meeting? No, just add it to your list. So I appreciate that communication a lot, and the efforts that you and Gary and everybody to have those conversations going on. So thank you.
Great. Okay, so then as part of sitting down with tenants and quite frankly, sitting down with everybody, I've been asking folks about their vision and their views about the future of the authority. And we've been very successful for 50 years with produce and 40 years at the Maryland Market Center. But if we keep doing exactly what we're doing today, we don't have another 50 years. I don't think it's surprising to anybody that these facilities, while being well maintained, while being well used, are old, and in some cases are getting towards the end of their productive lives. I know that there's been a lot of conversations in this board and amongst the staff for a lot of years about, okay, what is it you do about that? And beyond just the age of the facilities, there's the very real notion that these facilities were built for a different time, when the industry looked different or commerce flowed differently, and when, quite frankly, the state had different needs. And so as we sit here today, my thought on this is we need to embark on a much more formal strategic planning process. And that's not to say there hasn't been a lot of planning that's happened here, because there certainly has been. But it's hard to plan a project here or a project there without knowing what's the big picture of what we're trying to do. The mission, and I know you all know it, but our mission is to develop, own, operate, improve, and maintain real estate projects that provide economical, sanitary, and modern facilities for food distribution in the state of Maryland. That is a broad mission. That is a good, still relevant mission, but that is an incredibly broad mission. And so I think now is the time to really think about how do we control our own destiny? How do we drill into who are we today? Who do we want to be in the future? What's the gap between here and there? And how do we build a responsible, sustainable approach that will include some really careful thoughts about resources and money? We'll probably take some really hard conversations about who is it we're trying to serve in terms of tenants today, tenants in the future. What are the consumers in this region need? What strategic role do we play as state-owned infrastructure? How do we return value to the taxpayers that own these facilities, right? Like it's a simple notion, but it's not an easy process. So to do this well, we're gonna need a lot of engagement, a lot of buy-in, and quite frankly, a lot of direction from the board. Because each of you bring really unique and interesting perspectives. I think that this needs to be an intentional process that makes sure that we are including viewpoints from tenants, including viewpoints from public and community partners, that we're thinking about how we fit in the broader role of state government, how we fit into the broader regional food system, right? Like there's a lot of work to be done here. And I would suggest that this is a process that probably takes close to the next year, with the thought that we could be in a place to come back to you with a good grounding and a good framework by the March board meeting that could then be informed by some conversation from the board through the summer, with the goal of getting to a final plan that could be made public by the September board meeting next year. So that's what's in my head, but it really matters what you all think. And if you say, no, we already know where we're headed, that's unnecessary, we'd rather staff spend time on other things, that's a fine response too. But if this is something you do see value in, we will need parts of your time individually and as a group to do this well. All right, that's my soapbox.
That's your soapbox now. And it's a good one. I think Peggy shared that in doing some research to onboard Katie, the last one on paper is about 15 years old. We didn't even waste any more trees printing it because that was 15 years ago. So I would like to either have some conversation now, your thoughts. We did not prepare a motion to direct staff, but I think, again, through the process that we went through in the last year, there were a lot of questions. How we structure those questions to staff to start, getting this framework. If we feel that some version of a game plan, a refreshed game plan is in order. So, any thoughts to direct or not direct? Yes, sure.
So the secretary and I have actually talked about this, so I think that this is a great idea and we're very supportive. My question is, would the authority be hiring a consultant to sort of conduct the strategic plan, or you're thinking that it would be done internally?
So my thought would be the breadth of it would be structured and done internally. There may be discrete pieces that we would need external support. And so some of those are things we're probably doing to some extent through the course of normal business. An example is Mary's been working with a group to do a rent comparison survey so that we understand how close to market rate our rent actually is. And so that's something that we're not going to do in-house, but would obviously inform the strategic plan. But my thought is
assessments as well.
Yeah, or thank you. If folks didn't hear that, Mary's also having a study done on property condition assessments. So there might be pieces like that, but what I don't picture is just hiring a firm and saying, you guys figure out how to do it. Because I think we are a unique structure, and we're positioned in a complicated way that I don't think it's as easy as a turnkey, video marketing analysis sort of thing. Yeah, Brian.
The tenant market rents, I'm a certified general real estate appraiser, so I can help review that.
And you are on our list for that, right? Where we are in the process is we're trying to get somebody under contract to do the work, so they haven't started the work yet, but we will absolutely, pull you in on that.
We are doing our own strategic plan, looking at 1,400 state properties. So we are hiring a consultant. That's running into our design, construction, energy division at DGS. So I will certainly, use and share what we're doing. I almost wish like we were a year in the future on this one, so we could share our, lessons learned.
Yeah.
But I'll share everything we're doing along the way and then whatever support I can.
That would be really, really helpful.
I love all the words that you use, Katie. I'm really happy to hear that someone's thinking about the future, just because the way that markets are set up here are absolutely not the way that they were designed to function when they were built. And to be thinking about how we continue to exist, which is always my concern, we need to do some kind of gap analysis. And I definitely am in support of doing everything internal with people who are here, and I'll participate in whatever way I can be helpful. And hopefully to the end, that we get something that is grounding enough to be able to determine what we need to do to hire for consultants in the future. We'll be able to budget for them, for those things.
Great, yes, Darren.
So we just completed ours.
Sure did.
And it was very helpful to have a consultant oversee the process, but we were heavily engaged in the whole conducting of the process. And so I would recommend that pathway if you can find it. And we found somebody who worked with extension in the past and that kind of thing. So we were looking for somebody who knew what we were about. I don't know if you'll be able to find that or not. I'm supportive of this. I think it probably should have been done 5 to 10 years ago. It's the way it's done. We try to do that every 5-6 years.
Yeah.
To review it. So I'm glad you're planning to do that.
Well, and I think honestly, first step is going to be compiling a bunch of the work that's already been done, because I want to be clear, it's not like folks who are sitting here not thinking and not planning. It's how do we weave the pieces together?
But also looking forward in a longer term view is not something we do daily in our jobs generally. Right, so you need to, and this is what you're trying to do, set out where you want the organization to be 5 to 10 years. Right?
Katie, I'm wondering if some of the trade associations might have someone available after we get some of the real nitty-gritty started. Yeah.
That is, you mentioned trade associations, I was thinking about that as well. There's a neglected part when people do this type of strategic planning, looking at the requirements of the customers of our tenants, where they're heading. And I'm just saying, like I said, from a food safety, food quality assurance point of view, blockchain, supply chain, and food is much more international now, especially produce. So I'm just saying that we have to really think about that, because you don't want to catch people flat-footed. What I mean by that is, let's say that you have a food quality assurance system, let's pick one, SQI. And it's great, but it costs thousands of dollars a year, even on a sliding scale for the size of our people. Pardon my sore throat. For the size of these facilities that we're providing here, that's a massive cost. And they may have one client who's just slamming it down their throats. So we have to consider when we're building and when we're setting things up, like for instance, the refrigeration offering, we talked about this for years, things like that. I just think that has to be considered as well, because you can develop a type of tunnel vision of this is what we're thinking about. I frankly don't care what we're thinking about. I'm concerned about what the customers of our tenants are thinking about.
We did not prepare an official motion, but I'm sensing, sensing from the conversation to direct Katie and staff to go ahead and start with some framework to bring back to us. Tap resources, thank you, Brian, if some of that work can be done before our March meeting. Is that a fair assessment of the room? Okay, so, that's okay. Mary's already busy. But thank you, and I think it should be a thoughtful and exciting opportunity, so, again, the need is real.
Great.
So.
And so
Where to start?
in the intervening time between now and our on our next meeting, you should it's some that you should expect to hear a little bit more about this from me, but specifically our chair. And then I know Gail, you've discussed vice chair and having folks talk to you about being very engaged as a vice chair at our previous meeting. That those will be key folks as we start thinking about how to set this up. Peggy, were you going to say something?
I just wanna note that I know we're all in the same room with the exception of one person, but we have to hear it on recording. So if you could speak up, that would be great. Thank you.
Peggy, who's online? Who's online?
I believe it's Monica.
Oh, okay, great. Hi, Monica.
Hi, Monica. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Apologies, my car decided not to collaborate this morning. About what Katie was saying, one of the things I mentioned, we just did the strategic vision for our organization because it changed completely in the last 5 years. And one of the things, I don't know the operation of the food authority well yet because I'm new to the board. I'm happy to learn as fast as I can to support. One of the things that we probably should consider as well is what are the competitors and what are the other state agencies that can collaborate with us to see what are their needs, because there are other needs. I'm thinking about BWI because I happen to be in another committee, but there are future synergy that could be explored. I'm happy to come down on a separate day and have a conversation whenever it's convenient for Kitty and everybody else that wants to be part of that conversation.
Thank you. Again, I'm always impressed with the talent and experiences around the table, so saddle up and let's go.
I've got 2 more updates.
I know you do. My little cheat sheet here, yes.
All right. Okay. So now that we've got the big piece out there, we gotta continue to walk and chew gum, or however you want to frame it. Is we've got to think about the long term while we're still meeting the mark on the day to day. And so there are 2 large projects that you all are very familiar with that I just want to give you quick updates on. First is our produce market expansion project. As you're aware, that went out to bid the invitation for bid was published in September. Addendums and answers to contractor questions went back out this week, and bids are due December 4th. And so as a part of that is why we are having an all virtual meeting on December 11th to give you all the readout of what's received for bids, which bids are responsive and responsible, and then quite frankly to have a frank conversation about what our funds in hand might allow us to do or not do, and think about the future of that project. So that will be December 11th. And related to that issue, in the past, you all had restricted $2.5 million for this project on our balance sheets. Then subsequently, that had been generally talked about MFCA contributing $3 million to this project, but 2.5 was what was formally restricted. Given the need for capital improvements in the market and our current cash situation, we are recommending to go ahead and restrict the additional 500,000, bringing this to the 3 million mark that folks had, I think, previously maybe mentally accounted for, but on paper, it was only 2.5.
Okay. Does that make sense? And I remember those numbers back and forth. So with that, we do need a motion to restrict an additional $500,000 of our existing cash for use in the produce market expansion. This is in addition to the 2.5 that was already restricted at our 2023 board meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Carrie.
Mhm.
There's a second? Thank you, Stephanie. Okay.
Okay,
Any further discussion on that? Okay, that just cleans up the records. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same
Aye.
sign. It goes behind me. All right, motion carries. Thank you. And Mary, however you need to do those,
Yeah.
I guess journal vouchers or whatever they are. Okay.
and then moving on to the other market, we continue to move forward on the Maryland Market Center renovation. These were 7 units that were made vacant that we are essentially refreshing and standardizing before they are released. The notice to proceed for this project was issued on July 9th. A substantial amount of work has been done between August and today. However, the contractor is slightly behind schedule, and we have had a few change orders and a few surprises along the way. We are working through that process, and Miriam has been a wonderful partner to us in working through that process. And we are still optimistic that the work will be done in the coming months with the goal of these vacant units being rented in March. There are folks who have expressed interest in the units. There have been conversations with existing tenants about some of these units. Mary is in the process of re-engaging with those interested parties. I know that there's also been a lot of interest from the board about the process for finding out about open units and becoming eligible. How we are looking at this is there were some commitments made to folks in advance, and so we are trying to not pull the rug out from anybody, but we also will share here if there are units that are actually open, so that this group knows. We will go through our wait list that we hold to make sure that anyone who has expressed interest knows about openings for open units. And then kind of separate and away from this immediate case, we are taking a look at that process for how and when do folks find out there's an opening, how do you become eligible, how do you become selected? And I think that has to fit into that strategic planning conversation, because what outcomes are we trying to drive toward? But in the near term, we certainly want to honor commitments that have been made. So we'll keep you updated on that work, but construction is active today and ongoing. Those are the two I have.
Okay, yeah, Carrie.
I just have a question. So are the tenants who are interested, will they be moving to these? Will they be adding to what they already have? And then when theirs is vacant, will we need to be refreshing those before someone else can come in, or can they just be rented the way they are?
Yeah, so in general, these are folks who are looking to expand their footprint within the market. I think that's also a point of conversation as we think about strategic planning of how many units is enough for one tenant. Because I think there is really great examples and stories of folks starting with one and growing to a point that that got their business to the next level. But does the board want there to be sort of an intentional path towards graduation? What does that model look like? Do we want to be an incubator or do we want to be a long-term home? And those are the types of questions I think we're going to want your views on. But this is also the second renovation of MMC. And Gary, you should jump in and say more, but part of this has been a goal to essentially standardize the units to make them more easily re-rented in the future. And there are pros and cons of that, right? Like some of our tenants certainly like a very customized space, but there is also cost for the authority that then takes away from regular maintenance and capital improvements and otherwise if we are providing a very custom space. Gary, anything you want to add on that?
And so you know, if someone wants a custom space, we do provide knockouts in the lower end and in the back end of the warehouse, so they can expand. It's just back to what Katie was saying, how far do we want to.
Yeah, and so when Gary says knockouts, essentially you can create a hallway between units or an opening, a doorway between units so that you're not having to go all the way out and through. You can go through multiple units, and then those are very easy for us to
then reconvert back to individual units. Thanks, Gary. All right, anything else? Thank you for those good updates, lots of progress happening. I just have a few things to announce. And I will not cry, but I've certainly enjoyed working with Mark Powell over the years on this board and in many, many other roles. He is retiring from the Maryland Department of Agriculture. So he sent me a nice text that this has been a real honor for him to represent multiple secretaries over the years and work with multiple folks. Also like to welcome Cassie. She was with us at our last meeting and she will be the representative from Maryland Department of Agriculture now. So if you have a chance, you can shoot Mark an email or whatever, but we wish him all the best in his retirement.
When's his last day?
30th, the 30th.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, also, I don't know that everybody is on the mailing list for the Anne Arundel County Economic Development Update, but Gerardo received, and his Wild Kids Farms have celebrated their 5th anniversary, and he got a very nice shout out in that publication. So he has done a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of volunteer engagement in that effort. So we congratulate him and that effort, and glad that they had him a part of this board. In addition, and we talked about it several times, but we do have someone who is interested in serving as vice chair. Yay. So I can take another trip. No, again, I think Stephanie Durger has agreed to be considered for, and if you look at her LinkedIn, she brings a lot to the table. She's not just the organic guru, which she is, but a lot of nonprofit experience, a lot of planning, lots of national exposure and experience. So I would entertain, where's this little thing? I would entertain a motion to elect Stephanie Durger as our vice chair through the end of her term. So, thank you, Darren. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Cassie.
Sorry, who was first and who was second?
Darren and then Cassie.
Thank you.
Any opposition?
And yeah. I'm asking for a discussion. We had a great conversation a few weeks ago. All in favor?
Aye. I wish I could vote.
Hi.
All opposed? Same sign. Thank you and congratulations. And I think, again, we don't have, a whole lot of governing documents that we don't have any.
That is already on the plate for Miriam, but now you don't.
Yeah, it's already on the plate. So I appreciate having a little more of a leadership team. And again, appreciate Katie reaching out just to bounce things off. Do you need to take this out to the board? Can we just, wait for a board meeting? So that's, I think, all of, right? Those are all my updates. And now we will go on to Gary with his string restoration news and views.
Well, there's good news. We anticipate starting in December. Anticipate.
December 2 weeks away.
That'll bring us to our deadline of March 1st. There is a possibility of a 2-week extension if possible. Wouldn't be able to work directly into the stream, but we would be able to work in the perimeters of the stream. Howard County Soil Conservation District approved the permit. We're waiting on signatures for the Mylars. Once we get that, we can move to the grading permit, and then hopefully December or so.
And there's some fish reproductive considerations in that
Yeah, between
format period.
March 1st and June 15th.
Okay, so if we don't get it done by March 1st, we're in another cycle.
Yeah, it'd be after June.
Okay,
We'd have to-
okay.
Hopefully, we don't have to, get everybody there and then, they leave and then have to, I forget, I'm thinking of the name of it right now.
Suspend operation.
We'll spend operation, but,
Mobilize.
Yes.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate your stewardship on that and working with those Howard County folks. We like the Howard County soil conservation people. They're good folks. All righty, anything else from that end, Gary?
Nope.
And,
Any questions?
yep, any questions for Gary? And Mary and I think Carlton did some work on our investment policy, so whoever wants to share about that.
Oh. Actually, Miriam did carry the massive weight of the whole thing. So I'm just getting credit where it's due in case this is unpopular. But if you guys like it, then it's all me. As Seneca said, victory has many mothers and defeat is an orphan, so. No, we were looking at, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We didn't want, the mousetrap had already been built, and so. We're going to follow the model that was set out by whom was it, Mary?
So the recommendation is to sign on to the state treasurer's, local government investment policy.
Absolutely. Like I said, somebody else is already doing this, we'll just latch on like leeches or something, and just feed, so.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, well, and the other reason is the state's policy references the general funds, which is to pool resources, and that is where almost all of our funds are set. We only have $3,000 for working capital, so it's sort of already captured under the state investment policy anyway. And I think what Miriam recommended was that we're not going to do it today because we obviously want people to think about it and see the policy, but is that we would be directed to keep our funds within the general fund and not be allowed to pull them out, which I don't even think we have the ability to do anyway. But,
absolutely.
Just wanted to do that.
And then the only thing I would add to that is, we had discussed briefly at the last meeting that the bulk of local entities that are covered by the requirement to have an investment policy essentially follow the state's policy. You have a small handful of entities that have, several tens of millions of dollars who have gone out and got private investment managers and have private investment managers handling their funds. But what the recommendation is, what Mary and Carlton had discussed was that the treasurer's office is already investing the authority's funds and has done so since time immemorial and is doing a good job with it as far as I understand.
Yeah.
In terms of the return that the authority is getting. So there are two paths, but sort of the path that would not require taking any chances would be to formalize the process that's already in place. So I think Mary said, did you say that they have a copy of the policy?
No,
We're receiving it?
we're not gonna be voting on it today. It will get sent out to
Okay.
them, but we just wanted to give an update on it.
Okay.
Yeah, so essentially you'll get a copy of the policy to be able to review between now and the December meeting, and we will be asking for approval in the December meeting.
Okay. So this will be a copy of the state policy.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
the current local government investment.
And thank you for doing that research, greatly appreciate it. I think that's all on my list for updates. And Mary.
Where do I start? No.
Can I just give a little bit on the top and then?
Oh, yes, sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, so as we get into budget, the most fun part of this is it's Mary's first budget at MFCA and my first budget at MFCA. And I think one of the things you're gonna see here is it's probably gonna feel familiar and gonna feel a bit like a status quo budget. And I think that is reflecting both us learning where the authority is, but also sort of that need for strategic planning of we want to keep moving things forward, but we're also not, proposing a whole new moon in this process either. And so in general, this is going to follow patterns you've seen before, trying to strike the right balance between holding a reserve for a rainy day or, major market disruptions, while also intentionally investing in the facilities and doing our best to keep things running day to day. This also continues moving forward on the big projects that you all have been tracking, while also picking up some capital projects that have been planned and budgeted for in the past, but for whatever reason didn't happen. So there are a few things that have just been pulled forward. And also make sure that we budget for contingencies, if we have a bad snowstorm or if we need major repairs in an older facility, we don't want to not have that thought out in a budget. And so you're used to this, but Mary will cover the audited FY 25 financial statements first, and then go through the operating budgets and the capital budgets. What you'll see here is a revised FY 26 budget compared to the one you passed at this meeting last year, as well as a new FY 27 budget. That's my frame up, Mary.
Thank you. And just before Mary gets started, Cassie has to totally switch gears and numbers at about 10 o'clock, so she is not walking out on this conversation. She's walking into the state budget conversation.
We have our departmental budget meeting at 10 o'clock.
So she's gonna slip out.
Talk about our budget.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hopefully you have all received the packages that Peggy sent out with the fiscal year 2025 audited financial statements, the fiscal year 27 budget request, and the fiscal year 27 capital improvement, maintenance, and development budget. Along with that, we included the 4-page summary that you're used to seeing when we present the budgets. If you've not had a chance to review these documents in detail, we encourage you to do so. There is a ton of data, especially within the audited financial statements and the supporting schedules of the budget that we just aren't able to cover in the time allotted for this meeting. So we really encourage that from our board members. In addition, I know for me, when I'm presented with a lot of data, it takes me a while to digest the data, and then usually on the ride home, I'm thinking, oh, why, and then I have a question. So we are available for questions whenever they come up, whether it's you reviewing the documents when you get home or if something comes up on the ride. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. As Katie mentioned, we are going to be requesting approval for an amended fiscal year 26 budget today, and we're going to be requesting approval on the fiscal year 27 budgets. Page 1, which you are used to seeing, is a summary. It shows the revenue and expense, the audited revenue and expense. It's kind of a combination of the budget preview and the audited financial statement review. So it's showing the actual fiscal year 25 revenue and disbursements. It shows the original budgeted fiscal year 26, the one you approved last year, revenue and expense. And then it's also showing the amended and the amended fiscal year 26 and the budget for fiscal year 27. And all of these results are presented in accordance with the audited financial statements. So I'm not going to bore everyone with the, oh, can you not hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. I'm not going to bore everyone too much with the GASB, but there are, and what we have discussed in the past at these meetings, there are two governmental accounting standards boards, which is GASB. They are the entity that governs our audited financial statements. They have two pronouncements that can have a significant non-cash impact on our financial statements. It's GASB 87, which is accounting for leases, and it's GASB 68, which deals with pensions. GASB 87 requires that any lease that has a term over 1 year be accounted for as a financing instrument. And so what that does is we take the discounted cash flows over the life of the lease, and we amortize that evenly over the remaining life of the lease. So despite a lease having built-in steps or a CPI increase, we're recognizing the same amount of rental revenue every month as a result of that lease. In addition, we are recognizing interest income, which is completely fictitious. We do not bill our tenants interest income, but because it's a financing instrument, that is what our audited financial statements show. And what that does is the ultimate impact of GASB 87 is that in the beginning of the lease year, we're recognizing additional rental income and interest income more than what we're actually receiving from the tenants. And then as you gear towards the end of that lease year, lease term, you're recognizing lower amounts of revenue than you're actually receiving from the tenants. The GASB's intent is to make everything smooth. It just causes more confusion. I will say that the audited financial statements do have a lot of discussion around this in the management discussion and analysis section. We also talk about some variances within that. So like I said, there's a lot of data in there. I would recommend you using it. So for fiscal year 25, our audited financial statements include additional revenue related to GASB 87 of $263,015. For fiscal year 26, I'm focusing only on amended here. We have additional revenue of $129,970. And then in fiscal year 27, we've hit the turn. We're actually going to recognize lower amount of revenue by $180,946 than what we're actually expected to receive. GASB 68, the pension pronouncement, that requires that the state of Maryland works with actuaries, and what they do is they come up with the overall pension liability for the state of Maryland for all state of Maryland employees, including the food center of employees. And they will allocate a portion of that projected liability to the food center authority. And so what that does is it just, I can't imagine it ever being a reduction. It always will cause us to record non-cash expense, and it's recorded in our salaries, wages, and fringe benefits line on the financial statement. So in fiscal year 25, we recognize non-cash expense of $285,275 from GASB 68. For the budget, we are projecting additional non-cash pension expense of $165,000 for both fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27. So that's on my GASB. So now we can get to a little bit more of the discussion. So for fiscal year 25, net operating income of $150,399 exceeded the amended fiscal year 25 budget of $40,501, and fiscal year 25 net income of $1,038,456 exceeded the amended fiscal year 25 budget of $440,501. I realize that's not on this page going forward. If we continue to do this, I will put the budget on there. It is referenced down on the bottom, but I knew that I had to pull the old budgets. As Katie mentioned, though, we do, our budgets have built-in reserves. We have to factor in the fact that we may have to have a repair, and we may have a heavy snow removal. Despite the fact that we had a state of emergency in January, our maintenance staff, who everyone loves, was able to alleviate and get rid of all the snow without having to hire a third party. With the equipment that we have and with the staff on hand, they worked night and day to get that done, but that can't always happen. And so despite the fact that we had a very low snow removal cost in fiscal year 25, we're budgeting as though we still have to go out and hire someone if there's another snow event. We may not even get any snow. So, but these reserves, I know, but these
hands said we are.
I hope so. I hope it's a lot of snow. What I hate is an inch of snow. That's just annoying.
It's aggravating.
Yeah. So with that, budget to actual comparison for us is less relevant. So I say those numbers, but what we're really going to do is we're going to compare fiscal year 24 to fiscal year 25, and that's going to be on page 2. We're not just there yet, for anything. And as I mentioned, there is additional discussion on the budget versus actual variance in the audited financial statements. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me as well. So while we're on this page, I do want to discuss the, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Just give me 1 sec. I apologize. I'm not that good at this. Okay. So amended fiscal year 26 budgeted operating expenses, which is the highlighted in pink line. That while it exceeds the fiscal year 25 actual results by 12.4% or approximately 604,000, it's actually 4.6% or 263,000 lower than the approved fiscal year 26 budget from last year. So you can see, we really went through and tried to identify adjustments that were really relevant for fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27. Fiscal year 27 operating expenses exceeded the amended fiscal year 26 operating expense budget by 3.4% or approximately 188,000. But this is still lower than the fiscal year 26 operating expenses that were approved last year. Fiscal year 27 operating expense increase over fiscal year 26 amended would actually be less than 3% if we had full similar staffing models for fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27. We all know that we are currently down on individual, or actually 3, and we are hoping to get them filled. Also, I want to point out in this page, and it's in blue, the interest income of $917,810 that we received from our funds held in the general fund. Another reason to keep the state's investment policy is that they have done a really good job for us. We projected for fiscal year 26 and for fiscal year 27 a reduction. For fiscal year 26, we're showing 600,000, and for fiscal year 27, we're showing 400,000. And that's primarily due to 2 factors. One, we expect interest rates to maybe come in a little, and also we're going to be spending a lot of the money that we have in the general fund. So the amount that can be invested is going to drop. So we tried to factor that in when we identified the amounts. Now, I do want to say that the interest income that we receive from our general fund, it's a significant source of capital for the state, for the Food Center Authority. So we rely on it, and we don't want it to go away. That is about all I have for page 1. Does anyone have any questions on page 1? And if I'm talking too fast, let me know. I am a little.
That's okay, calm down, everything's fine.
A lot.
Any questions for Mary? Again, some of the categories look very familiar. Yeah, the rules are crazy, right?
They are.
I mean, I appreciate you outlining them, I have to deal with the lease gas.
Oh, yeah,
It's a
yeah.
nightmare.
Yeah, it is. And
Thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, so page 2, this is the, I think, more relevant, Frank, thank you. This is the more relevant, I think, comparison of our audited financial results. What we've done on page 2 is we've essentially backed out the non-cash adjustments that we reference in the line items that they impact to come up with the adjusted operating income. And this year, it was a very small impact to our financial statements, but it can be very significant. So adjusted operating income adjusted net operating income for fiscal year 25 of $171,659 is $458,898 less than the fiscal year 24 adjusted operating income. I've highlighted, it's not on the one that you received, but it's on the one on the screen. I highlighted the items that I'm going to be discussing. So I did want to just call out rental revenue and charges for services is $269,570 greater than fiscal year 24. And initially you would think, oh, well, that's CPI increases, but it's not. It's primarily related to our service center, service expense revenue. The tenants at both the Maryland Wholesale Produce Market and the Maryland Market Center reimburse for all the operating costs that are incurred at both markets. Well, produce reimburses for the produce expenses, and Maryland Market Center reimburses for Maryland Market Center. That revenue is exactly offset in our operating expenses down below. We would never collect more than we've actually incurred in operating expenses from the tenants. We bill them an estimate each month, and at the end of the year, our goal, if we were fortune tellers, we would not owe them anything and they would not owe us anything. We would have billed the exact same amount of money that we spent. But in reality, that never happens. So our next goal is to have surplus. The idea would be that we are not going to have to go back to the tenants and ask them for additional funds if there is a deficit for the expense, the operating expenses. So we would like a small surplus so that we're not collecting too much revenue from the tenants in advance, but that we're able to give that money back. And when there is a surplus, we give that money back immediately. But if there is a deficit, what we do is we would bill that back over 6 months so that the burden is less onerous on the tenants and it's spread out, so it doesn't impact them as much. I am happy to say for fiscal year 25, both markets had surpluses. So we were able to refund and we don't have to account for it. It's much easier for me to deal with surpluses too. So I like it, and I like it for the tenants as well. So Both markets had a surplus. So, the other items that I wanna point out expense-wise is fiscal year 25, salary, wages, and related costs exceeded fiscal year 24 by $233,098. That is primarily due to additional staffing. We hired a new maintenance person in September of 24, and I started in January of 25. And then also there's the associated fringe benefits and all those other costs related to expenses. There is a small merit and cost of living adjustment incorporated in there, but the bulk is that we have additional staff for fiscal year 25. The other items I want to cover contractual services. Contractual services exceeded fiscal year 24 by $196,142. In this line item includes the legal settlement, but it also includes when we have vacant units, rather than ask the tenants to bear any cost for a vacant unit, the MFCA absorbs the service, those operating expenses for the vacant units. And as you know, we have 7 vacant units at the Maryland Market Center that we're renovating. And in that line item for contractual services, that is where the portion of the service costs are shown. And we also had bad debt of $211,949. So that really accounts for the big variances that we have between fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 24. Does anyone have any questions about the audited financial statements? If not, I think we're going to seek board approval for the fiscal year 25 audited financial statements.
Yes, we are. All right, good. Under D, thank you. Thank you, Peggy, as always, for. I'll entertain a motion to approve the FY 25 audited financial statements. Thank you, Stephanie. Is there a second? Thank you, Carrie. Any further discussion or questions?
I've got a question.
Sure.
Just for my own edification, what is bad debt?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
She's concerned about what she can say. You may recall that the authority terminated the lease of a tenant last year. That tenant had some, as I understand it, past due COVID era rent. I guess the authority didn't collect rent during COVID, and so that amount was being paid back slowly. And then with the termination, the authority essentially wiped that debt.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, any other questions? Thank you, eagle eyes. Okay, all in favor of approving the audited financial statements, say aye. Opposed, say. Okay, audits are done, thank you.
Okay, so page 3. Now we're actually to the budget. So before I begin, there's a couple things I wanted to address with the budgets. There are 7 controlled object accounts, that's what the state calls them, that there are costs that are passed back to the authority from the state of Maryland that we have absolutely no control over. It's primarily IT and insurance costs, and also we absorb a portion of Department of Budget Management and Human Resources. It gets allocated to us as well. And those items, we have not been given any guidance for what that will be, even for fiscal year 26. The Department of Budget Management won't have those numbers available until December. We did include estimates in our fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27 budgets. For the most part, we increased by 3% just to have something in there, but we won't know the actual numbers until December. We will apprise the board of what the final numbers are, but these are beyond our control. So all we will do, we're asking for the approval with these amounts in there, and then we'll just let you know what they end up being based on the final allocation from the board, the budget, the DBM. In addition, there is health insurance. So the state of Maryland, they use a budgeting software tool, but we don't have access to that. You're looking at me like you know what I'm talking about. So, but we don't have access to that. So we prepare our entire budgets in Excel. The guidance that we have is that this software will calculate what the health insurance is going to be once they get all the information from us. Well, the budget analyst wasn't going to run it twice, so she's waiting on our approved budget to put the numbers in, and then we'll get the final health insurance and other fringe benefits that come out. Again, these are things we cannot control, so we feel comfortable. We put a number in there, and then we will apprise the board of what those final numbers end up being. Okay, so fiscal year 26 amended budget of $5,789,881, and fiscal year 27's request is $5,991,926. I'm going to speak briefly about salaries. So, yes, so salaries. So within the budget package, the detailed budget package that you received, there are detailed salary information. I'm just going to talk about everything, you know, in summary level, but if there's something that you look at or whatever, it is included in the budget package. It's the second page behind each department, if you ever want to look at that data. So salary expense of $3,594,850 for fiscal year 26 is 3.3% greater than fiscal year 25, but it is 8.5% less than the original approved budget from fiscal year 26. We are holding Angela's position. When Angela wore a lot of hats, her responsibilities were allocated to a number of people. And I know one of the things Katie's doing now is evaluating our staffing needs. So we left that position in our budgets. And we also are trying to hire 2 full-time security guards. I don't think we've ever had a full staff of 7 full-time security guards, but that's our goal. And it's in the budget, and so that is accounting for a lot of the increase. And again, with any position, you have associated fringe benefits with that. So while that is the reason fiscal year 27 salaries is 8.4% greater than fiscal year amended 2026, but still less than fiscal year 2026 original budget that was approved last year. We just have, you know, it's the timing of the salaries. The other item I wanted to discuss or point out is travel. So we have not been as engaged with a couple of the major associations. We are re-engaging with the World Union of Wholesale Markets and the National Association of Produce Market Managers. We're going to start that in January of 2026. So that's why you see a ramp up in between fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27. We have about a half a year of dues and the associated travel related to these associations. And then fiscal year 27 has a full year of that. But we think it's important to be involved, and it's a great resource. Motor vehicle operations and maintenance. So this line item gets a little confusing. So within this, we have a lot of reserves because we have our maintenance team is amazing with the vehicles. We just disposed of a 1995 trash truck. I don't know of anything that lasts 30 years, but the guys do an amazing job, but that we can't guarantee that. And honestly, things are built better back then. So, you know, as you buy new things, the repairs that come up may be, you know, significant, and we just don't know. So that's really what's driving a huge chunk of the increase over fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27 and 26 aren't two different. Is that we have the repairs built in for the emergencies. And one thing I failed to mention is that these reserves, we think we've covered what could happen with a potential issue. But you never know. It could be that we put a dollar amount in and we end up having to spend $50,000 more. So what we do in that situation is we're gonna look to see where we can reallocate from the budget and save money in other line items. And if that's the case, regardless if we've had this big expense, it will be part of our board updates. We're going to have to let you know that, oh, by the way, we had, this catastrophic breakdown of something. But that is kind of how we handle. We're hopeful that it would never get to that, but if there is a chance. So I do want to point out that that is our plan if the reserves are not sufficient. So within motor vehicles, operation and maintenance is also when we purchase vehicles that are to be used in the markets, we bill that back to the tenants, but what we do is we don't bill back all at once. We amortize it over the estimated useful life. We don't want to say, oh, we're buying this $300,000 trash truck. Here, you pay for it all now. So we spread that out over the life of the lease, which Gary and Martin provide to us. Fiscal year 26 includes a full year of amortization for a sweeper that we bought right at the end of fiscal year 25. And it also includes the amortization for proposed trash truck that we want to purchase and a dump truck that we want to purchase. So that is also driving a part of the expense increase over fiscal year 2025 actuals. Fiscal year 26. So, contractual services is the other big guy. So snow removal sits here. So I already called out the fact that our maintenance team did a great job, and despite the state of emergency, we did not need to seek outside help. But this is always a potential, and we actually have a snow committee with the tenants that would direct us if we had to purchase, because the markets don't stop. I don't think they close even if there's a huge 4-foot snowstorm.
We've done it once.
Once in your 30 years here.
Remember.
And I trust them. So snow removal is always yeah.
2010.
Oh, yeah. So our budgets incorporate, up what we think could happen with this snow removal. We don't know. We're hopeful it doesn't happen, but we just have to account for that. The other thing that's in here is this is, as I mentioned before, this is the line item where we include the Maryland Food Center share of the vacant units for the operating expenses. So that is why fiscal year 26 is higher than fiscal year 27's contractual service amount, is that the 7 vacant units for the Maryland Market Center, that our share of those operating expenses is included in contractual services. In addition, while contractual services does drop in fiscal year 27, we do have budgeted our IT consultant added a part-time security office as part of his contract that he proposed to us. I think we all know that cyber threats are a huge concern. They're everywhere. So that is really money well spent. And that was included in the budget numbers as well. Those are the real big variances that I chose to call out. I don't know if anyone else has any additional questions, but our proposal is the $5,789,881 for fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27, $5,991,926. And again, that is lower than what was approved for fiscal year 26 this time last year. Any questions?
So motor vehicle, because it's such a large expenses, if that's different than the equipment replacement and equipment additional, that's a different, what's under that?
So that is more IT related, and anything motor vehicle is embedded in that motor vehicle.
Yeah, okay, great.
Any questions? We're almost done, I swear.
Okay, can we go ahead and do that one?
No, we can do it all at once. Sorry, I don't know. I just wanted to put,
Okay, this was
restate the numbers. Yes, this is operating. Yep. Last page 4, capital improvement, maintenance and development. And so, The total budget request for fiscal year twenty-six are amended is 6,394,750, and our amended or our proposed budget for fiscal year twenty-seven is 4,463,000. This is not less than what you approved for fiscal year twenty-six last year. What it is though, there are a number of items that were carried forward. Katie addressed this earlier from fiscal year 25's budget. There's only so many columns we can put on here. We did not put fiscal year 25's operating budget on here, but I will let you know which ones were carried forward. So the stream restoration, we had anticipated that for fiscal year 25. That's a very tricky window and we were waiting on county, so that got delayed to fiscal year 26. We also had the trash truck and packer that was originally projected to be purchased in fiscal year 25. That's a very long lead item, they're custom. And so we just weren't able to get it in fiscal year 25. So we've moved that forward to fiscal year 26. And the other item is the, it's on a roll. I do want to mention, although I don't think it's going to be possible based on what Gary just said, is that the stream restoration, because of the fish spawning cycle, it's possible if we did not get started within the timeframe and we're not able to finish it, and as Gary mentioned about the mobilization, that would have had to been pushed into fiscal year 27. It sounds like hopefully that is not the case, but it is, yes, it's a potential. So just want to make that aware that may slide. Although it sounds like it won't. Let's see. Oh, and the other thing, MMC renovations, that's the big one. That was originally budgeted for fiscal year 25 as well. It was a lower amount that was previously approved. The months that we're projecting in this budget reflect the actual bid results. There were more units because originally I don't think we had 26 and 28 included in our budget estimates, and we just have we've put in additional contingencies as well based on what we've seen so far. So that number, while it's carried forward from fiscal year 25, it is a higher number than what we had previously. The new projects for fiscal year 26, which is what I think most people probably care about, is we have, and I'm only going to talk about big ones, but and bird netting demo, that one is not big, but it could be big in the next year. So that's why I want to talk about that a little bit. And Gary is the expert on bird netting here, but apparently they, he's an expert of many things, but
I will say this, I really want to put bird netting in. I mean, you've been trying to for years.
I was gonna say.
Really want to. No. Well, we've approved it before and then the project was up and things were getting bounced around.
okay, and the material was not good. So Gary has found a new company that has hopefully better netting. And so that's why we want to do a demo. We're only going to do it in an area where it's in the produce market that is really has a lot of activity.
Yeah, a lot of traffic.
Yeah, so that's why we want to do that. So we put 12,500 for fiscal year 26. That's what we will put in. We'll do the demonstration, see if it works, see if this new netting actually does what it's supposed to do. If that is the case, which we're hopeful for, we've requested in fiscal year 27, $650,000 to put netting in the front area of the front dock of the produce market and all of the dock which is only one, the dock for the Maryland Market Center. The other item that's new is we have added a canopy corrugated roof replacement for both and structural sandblasting and painting. It's shown as $500,000, but there's also $50,000 for each of these projects included in the consulting and engineering fees. The detail of this is in your budget books. So those two projects can't be completed until the MMC renovation is done, but they are necessary, and it's part of our, while not strategic, but our plan to keep the markets as as clean and effective as possible. So those are new projects for fiscal year 26. I believe we did a produce market a couple years ago.
Yeah, a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it has to go in a certain order. With the bird netting, we would have to do the corrugated metal, the sandblasting, and then the bird netting.
So the bird netting may actually get pushed because all of this is a lot of stuff and it's contingent on the MMC renovation.
And it doesn't apply, that doesn't apply to the produce market. Once we figure out the bird
Right.
netting, we should be able to move forward straight there,
Yeah.
because we've already done the sandblasting.
Yeah. That's good to know. I didn't know that. And then the other big item in fiscal year 27 is we added that, where everything is fluid, but assuming bids come in, we can produce, we can go with the produce expansion. We only have $10 million, we only have $11 million other people's money to use for the produce market expansion. So we're showing our $3 million obligation that you guys thankfully just approved in fiscal year 27. Now, it says $2,750,000, but within the $310,000 of consulting engineering fees, there is also $250,000 for the produce expansion. So those are the big things. The dump truck is just a carry forward from fiscal year 26. And the trash truck and packer was a carry forward from fiscal year 25. So those are the ones that I thought were the biggest and most interesting to discuss. If anyone has any questions about our capital improvement plan?
Just one for Gary, and you're gonna like it because it's about bird netting. But the question, the firm that we use for the bird netting, that bird netting is just one of several interventions that they have, correct?
Yes,
Okay, I just wanted to.
yeah, we're just trying to find the best one is for our market because of the different operations with workloads and stuff like that.
Sure, that's a good, okay, I just wanted to,
Yeah.
because like you said, it depends on whether the doors automatically close, how long are they open, all sorts of stuff, so I just wanted to know if.
And this is mainly for the open dock.
Right, okay, I just wanted to be clear, thank you.
Something that jumped out at me, you may have already discussed it, but under contractual services for administration, miscellaneous services, we had 90,000 as amended in 2026. Request is 25,000 for 27. Actual in 25 was 65,000.
Yeah, so that is, in the event that we need to hire consultants for, we have the property condition assessments that we want to have completed regardless of the strategic plan. But also we put money in there just as a placeholder for the potential for having to engage and who knows, other third parties as part of our analysis for the strategic plan. So that's where we put that.
The strategic plan. And we think that a reduction to 25,000 is adequate.
For 27, well, we're hopeful that we'll have gotten the bulk of all the work done within fiscal year 26.
Okay.
And if things get delayed, then we'll look to amend the fiscal year 27 as well.
What were the what was the $65,000 in fiscal year 25 for?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I'm sorry, I don't recall off the top of my head.
You said the bulk of the estimate is for strategic planning. Were we doing strategic planning in 25? I guess that's where my question is coming from.
Yes, fiscal year 26, the amount that we have for administration, that miscellaneous includes, but not just the strategic planning. Even if we weren't doing strategic planning, we are going to be doing the property condition assessments. I have a quote on that, which is about, I want to say like $24,000, but that is happening regardless. We do need those done. The last ones I think I found were, I want to say 2010, 2009 maybe. I could be wrong on the year, but, so that's happening regardless, that is our plan.
Are the property condition assessments done annually?
No, we haven't done one since either 2000, I don't know, I want to say 2009. That was the last one that was done, so we definitely, they should be done probably every 5 years or so. David, what would your recommendation be for that?
Every 5 years sounds great to me.
We did reach out to GDS and I believe they gave us some information on what they do. Well, they do a lot of it because they have so many experts. They can do it more internally, but you know, it is not every 15 years or, 15 years. That's not correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
But I can get back to you on what's in the consulting for fiscal year 25. I just don't recall off the top of my head.
It just stood out as one of the biggest changes year over year.
Yep.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I should have highlighted that. Okay, so before we leave though, there's a couple other things. We're almost done, I promise you. I do just want to point out, you know, if all goes well, and well, I don't know if it's well, because that would mean we had all these reserves that we had to spend, but if all of the expenses that are approved today are spent, then we expect our fiscal year 26 ending cash balance to be $8,016,276. And then our projected ending cash balance for fiscal year 27, same scenario, would be $5,283,46. The other thing I did want to mention, while it doesn't impact budget, is we have quite a few at the end of fiscal year 27, June 30, 2027, almost all but one major lease at the Maryland Market Center is expired. And about half of the produce market tenants leases expire at June 30, 2027. We also have the truck lot lease expires, I believe, in February of 2027. So it's a very big process to get the leases approved. We seek tenant approval, we have to have Board of Public Works approval. So I just wanted to let everyone know that we will be starting that process towards the end of fiscal year 26. And, you know, it is something that we should all be aware of, that, you know, we could have a vacant, not that it would, but we could have a vacant unit if no one renewed. And that is it for me. So now I am seeking approval for both the amended fiscal year 26 capital improvement budget and the operating budget, and the fiscal year 27 capital improvement operating budget.
We separate things out, or can you do it together?
I have two different motions.
I thought you had.
I will look for a motion to approve the revised FY 26 and FY 27 capital improvement budgets in total. It's the second set of numbers that she shared. So, yeah. Entertain that motion to approve revised FY 26 and FY 27 capital improvement combined in total.
So moved.
Thank you, Darren. Is there a second? Thank you, Stephanie. Any further questions from Mary? Thank you so much, Mary.
Yes.
We're worried. All in favor of the capital improvement budget?
Aye.
Yep, okay.
Aye.
All opposed? The next one is a little more involved. This is the operating budget. I'll entertain a motion to approve the revised FY 26 operating budget and the FY 27 operating budget in total. Included in these budgets are a 2% merit, 1% COLA increase in FY 27 for all MFCA employees, excluding the executive director. The FY 27 increase will only be given if the state of Maryland authorizes increases for all state agencies. Okay. Okay, thank you, Karen. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on that?
And I can give you just the point of excluding me because you just hired me, and this seemed like an odd time to give you a chance to evaluate me before we suggest an increase.
There we go. Thank you, for that clarification. Any other questions behind me or in front of me? All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, yeah, thank you. And so my sense is if there are dramatic changes, you'll bring it amended as
Yes.
needed through the year. All righty. Now, more numbers. Get the cobwebs out. We are now gonna look at the also the revenue and expenses for the month of August 2025.
And these
These are in the book, right? Yeah, yeah.
You all should have received these with the, I believe, the invitation. There's not really too much to address or discuss on these. We are, in line with prior year. And, both markets have a surplus, which is where we want to be right now, as we had talked about in the past. We do see some expenses increasing in the winter months, so the fact that we kind of want to build up that surplus and then use it through the winter months to keep us still with a surplus for the tenants at the end of the year. So they're really, I couldn't even find anything really to talk about these. So I'm just, unless someone has any questions about them, I'm gonna ask that you accept them.
Again, that surplus at the bottom,
Yes,
wait till the end of the year and then you distribute it out. as
Yes.
appropriate.
yes,
Like to see.
yes.
Okay. Any questions for Mary or Kate or Jerry or anybody? Okay. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to accept the statement of revenues and disbursements for the produce market and the market center. With a piece of information, these are presented to the tenants at the next tenant advisory board meeting, which is scheduled for December 3rd. The motion I'm looking for is to accept the statements of revenue and disbursements as presented. Thank you, Stephanie. Second, Carlton. Thank you.
Gail, I did forget something when I was talking about the budgets, but it's a quick one. I'm not sure that I told you all, but we do send the budget out to the tenants to apprise them of what we're asking for. We sent it out last Monday and we did not receive any comments.
So the motion on the floor is about the statement of revenues and expenses. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, I think that's a lot of numbers, but thank you so much. Those of us that I can't do with Excel spreadsheet to balance my checkbook, so I greatly appreciate your magic in this world. Just a couple of reminders. We do have a December 11th meeting scheduled, which will be virtual. We will receive the bids at that point, and we have spent how much of the 10 million from the state in getting these ready?
About 890.
Yeah, right, yeah. I don't know if folks heard that, right under 900,000.
Right under $900,000 of the 10 million, and then we have our 3 million that we're holding in reserve, and do we still have the million from Howard County? So hopefully these bids come in at 10. And R&I agreement. So that's the 11th, will also be at 9 o'clock. Okay. We went ahead and scheduled out meetings into 27.
26.
26, I see. I know, for 26.
So we've been talking about it all day.
We've been talking about FY 27, for 26, in March, June, September, and November. Kind of the same format of, times of the weeks of the month, and those are all Thursdays also. Right, Peggy? Yeah. Okay, any other business or good of the order to come before this austere group? I think I would just be generous, if somebody has strategic planning thoughts or whatever, we're going to come, just shoot Katie an email, you know, let's make sure we include this, let's make sure we include that, or this is, you know, a dream to pursue, and whatever. So I think, again, through the process of the last year, we all had a lot of creative questions and ideas, so if we can revisit some of those, that would be great, and get this process started. So, okay, and we are at 10:30, if I don't hear any other business. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Darren.
Second.
All right, all approve?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Aye.
A lot of material today, but all good.